The digital clock above the counter read 2:17 a.m. when Emily Carter realized that night no one would call her Emily anymore. She had already become the newbie, the girl, the newcomer, the one who handled the simple cases while the ER veterans danced in the chaos as if they had been born into it. The emergency room at St. Augustine Medical Center, just minutes from the Coronado Bridge and the blue lights of the sea, seemed to breathe on its own, automatic doors opening and closing, the smell of antiseptic mixed with burnt coffee, the beeping of the monitors entering the brain like a refrain. She pulled her lab coat up for the third time out of habit, hiding the thin scar on her left forearm. It wasn't a pretty scar. It was the kind of reminder that doesn't show up in graduation photos. The head nurse, Dana Reynolds, walked past her as if Emily were a pillar of the building. Dana had that look of someone who had seen it all and therefore believed that no one had anything new to offer. "Carter," Dana didn't even stop. "When you're done with Mr. Lewis's stitches, go to room 4. Sore throat, low-grade fever, anxious mother, and please don't make things complicated." "Yes, ma'am," Emily replied, in the neutral tone she had practiced to avoid sounding defensive. She still remembered the first day she had set foot there, her new badge dangling around her neck, the feeling of a fresh start vibrating in her chest like music, except that this fresh start smelled of plastic and hierarchy. Mr. Lewis, a middle-aged surfer with an imaginary surfboard on his arm, complained about each needle prick as if it were a personal betrayal. Emily applied the dressing calmly, her hands steady, her voice low. She had learned early on that in an environment where everyone shouted, the quietest voice was usually the one the patient followed. When she finished, she wiped the counter with precise movements, closed the tray, and went out into the hallway. Room 4 was occupied by a 5-year-old child who was coughing up a dry cough into the world, his mother with wide eyes and a thermometer in her hand as if it were a weapon. Emily entered smiling, introduced herself, and crouched down to the boy's level. "Hey, champ, do you like dinosaurs?" The boy looked suspicious, but the word dinosaur opened a window of understanding. "I like T-Rex." "Then help me out. Open your mouth like a T-Rex. Like this. Ah!" While examining the throat and listening to the lungs, Emily heard the sector radio crackle behind her. Someone announced in a rapid voice an arrival code. She didn't hear the first sentence, but she heard what came next. "Inbound, trauma, multiple victims, ETA 8 minutes. The noise in the hallway changed, as if the air had grown heavier. Dana appeared in the doorway of room 4, her posture already commanding. "Carter, finish quickly and grab extra supplies for the trauma room, and stay in triage, okay? No going into room 1 unless you're called." Emily nodded. It was always like this. The important decisions were left to the most senior staff, the sorting, the filtering, the place where people listened and obeyed. She finished with the boy, gave instructions to the mother, and left with quick steps for the supply room. On the way, he crossed paths with Dr. Patel, the on-call physician, and 2 residents who seemed to have drunk too much coffee. One of them, Travis, was making jokes to disguise his nervousness. "Here comes the fun," he said, but his eyes had a restless glint. Emily pushed the supply cart closer to the trauma room and instinctively began organizing it the way she liked. Gauze, saline solution, catheters, tourniquets, intubation kits. She stopped when she saw that, in the upper cabinet, the commercial tourniquets were stored at the back, stacked behind boxes of gloves. Without thinking, she pulled forward and left the turnstiles at hand height. "We don't need that here in the front," a veteran nurse, Mike, commented walking past. "That's more of a field thing. We have a surgeon here." Emily was about to reply that a tourniquet at hand could be the difference between getting someone to the surgeon alive or not getting anyone there at all, but she swallowed her words. She knew Dana's don't get fancy attitude, like the back of her hand, that she knew a storm warning. The helipad alarm sounded. The voice on the radio confirmed. Medical helicopter arriving. Multiple victims of an accident during training. One of them agitated, another unconscious. There is also an officer on the way. The automatic emergency room door swung open as if tired of obeying, and a stream of paramedics rushed down the corridor. The first was pushing a stretcher with a man in a torn neoprene suit, pale skin, and irregular breathing. On the second, there was another man, young, with a bloodied face, and a look that seemed to belong to someone still in another place. He writhed, trying to get up, and the paramedics struggled to restrain him. "He won't stop!" one of them shouted. "He tried to rip off his mask, almost hit the team. He's confused, aggressive, his blood pressure is dropping." Emily caught a glimpse of the tattoo on the agitated man's arm, an anchor, a trident. She also saw the pattern of shallow breathing, the cold skin, the pupils that weren't properly following. The kind of agitation that wasn't just anger, it was hypoxia, pain, panic, or all of them together. Dana took the lead. Room 1 with the unconscious, room 2 with the agitated. Carter, triage. Stay there. Emily stayed, but her eyes wouldn't stay still. The unconscious man, maybe in his 30s, had pink foam at the corner of his mouth. A paramedic said, possible gas embolism and rapid ascent. Diving training. That made sense in that area. The SEALs trained nearby. Diving, swimming, heavy surfing. She'd heard stories before, even if she pretended not to. The agitated man turned his face, and for a second, his eyes met Emily's. It wasn't a look of pleading for help. It was a look of instinctive recognition, the reflex of someone searching for a point of reference in the midst of a storm. Emily felt her stomach sink without knowing why. As the second stretcher passed, one of the paramedics approached Dana, his face tense. "There's another one. Coming by land, black SUV. They don't want to use an ambulance." Dana frowned. "Who are they?" "Navy. Special Forces. They said it's the commander." The automatic doors opened again, and this time the air seemed to freeze. 2 men in civilian clothes entered, but they walked as if they were used to entering places where everyone makes way. One of them carried a third man, not in uniform, but with the dead weight of someone who isn't cooperating with gravity. The man being carried had his dark shirt torn on the side, and blood ran in a line, difficult to see through the fabric. Behind them came a fourth man, taller, broad-shouldered, unshaven, his eyes not scanning the room with curiosity. They scanned with calculation. He had one hand pressing something against his side, but seemed to ignore the pain as if it were a minor detail. His presence filled the corridor even before he spoke. "I need a room now," he said, his voice deep without getting up. It wasn't a request. It was an order the world had learned to obey. Dana straightened up, as if acknowledging authority reluctantly. "Sir, we need to follow protocol. Patience. A name, vital signs. This is non-negotiable." The man looked around, and then his eyes stopped on Emily. And time, for her, played that cruel trick of pulling an entire memory into a single second. The man blinked once, as if confirming something he hadn't expected to find. And then, in the middle of the crowded hallway, with monitors beeping and people talking, he said a single word, clear, cutting through the noise like a blade. "Haven." Emily felt the sound hit her chest. It wasn't Emily. It wasn't Carter. It was a name she hadn't heard in years, a name that wasn't on her credentials, a name that existed on a radio, on moonless nights, in cold sand clinging to her face, in blood that didn't have time to dry. The silence that formed around them wasn't total. The emergency room was still buzzing, but it was as if an invisible circle opened around them. Dinah looked at Emily as if she had discovered a secret door inside the room. "What?" Dinah began. The tall man ignored him. "Haven, I need you. Now." Emily blinked, feeling her brain alternate between 2 versions of herself. The rookie nurse who was sent on sore throats, and the other, buried one, who responded to that name with her muscles before her thoughts. Sir, I'm in triage," she tried, but her voice came out weak, almost absurd. He took a step closer, and Emily saw, up close, the exhaustion behind the control. And she saw the same kind of fear she had seen in the agitated man's eyes. Fear, with discipline, fear with purpose. He'll die before he gets to the hyperbaric chamber if you don't take on this case, the commander said, chin gesturing toward the unconscious man being carried to room 1. And my man here has a puncture wound. I don't trust anyone who doesn't know what it's like to work in the dark. Dana swallowed hard. Sir, with all due respect, Nurse Carter. Haven isn't Carter to me, he interrupted. She's already saved my team when nobody else could get there. And she'll save them again. Emily felt the world move. She took a deep breath, and the air filled her as if it were full of sand. She looked at Dana, then at Dr. Patel, who had stopped a few feet away, watching with a raised eyebrow. Dana, I can help in room 1, Emily said, trying to maintain a professional tone. If it's a gas embolism, the window of opportunity is short. We need 100% oxygen, proper positioning, avoid maneuvers that increase pressure, and call the chamber team. Now. Mike laughed humorlessly. Look at her making things up. The commander turned to Mike as if sizing up a target. Would you rather argue, or would you rather keep your patient alive? The entire runner seemed to choose the second option. Dana took a breath, trying to regain control. Carter, Haven, whatever. Go with Dr. Patel to room 1. I'll cover triage. Emily grabbed the supply cart and pushed it as if she were running without actually running. She entered room 1 along with Patel and 2 other technicians. The man on the stretcher had almost grey skin. A paramedic kept repeating, rapid ascent, cough, confusion, collapse. Okay, Patel said, already putting on gloves. Emily, get the IV line, 2 large bore ones, high flow oxygen, and call the chamber. Emily moved without thinking, her body seemingly remembering the path. She gripped the patient's arm firmly, searching for a vein as the monitor showed his oxygen saturation plummeting. The man opened his eyes for a second, pure panic, and tried to rip off his mask. Hey, look at me, Emily said, her voice low and firm. You're safe. I'm here. Breathe like you're blowing out a candle. That's all. 1, 2. The patient hesitated. His trembling hand stopped pulling at the mask for a second. Emily inserted the catheter precisely, secured it, and connected the IV. Meanwhile, Patel examined the pupils, listened to the heartbeat, and Resident Travis prepared medication. Do you even know what you're doing, rookie? Travis asked. But without irony, it was more astonishment. Emily didn't answer. She heard a voice shouting code red in the hallway and the sound of running footsteps. The emergency room was turning into a maze of emergencies. The hyperbaric chamber is 20 minutes away, a technician announced over the intercom. Team on the way. 20 minutes is an eternity, Patel murmured. Emily looked at the patient and saw small bubbles of pink foam, saw his chest rising with effort. She thought of what she had seen once, in the desert, when a man breathed like that and nobody had a camera. Put him in a supine position, head slightly elevated, maintain 100% O2, Emily said. Avoid Trendelenburg position, it's not recommended, and don't let him exert himself. If there's a seizure, protect the airway. We need to monitor him neurologically. Patel looked at her, surprised. You took a scuba diving course? Emily swallowed. I've worked on cases like this before. Outside, there was a loud bang and someone shouting that the agitated patient had escaped from the stretcher and was trying to get out the door. Emily felt her heart race. Chaos always found a way in. The door to room 1 flung open. The commander entered, his face hard, and behind him 2 men held the agitated patient, now with blood in his nose and wide eyes. He's hyperventilating and attacking everyone, one of them said. He's in crisis. Emily saw the agitated man's face up close now. He had sand in his hair, and he had that look of someone who doesn't recognize walls, only threats. He needs sedation, Travis said, already grabbing a syringe. Wait, Emily said, and the word came out before she could decide. She looked at the commander. What's his name? The commander clenched his jaw. Name? That doesn't matter. It matters to him, Emily insisted, looking at the man. And if he was my patient in the field, maybe... The commander hesitated for a millisecond, as if making a choice between secrecy and life. Tyler Brooks, call sign Riptide. Emily felt her stomach churn. Riptide wasn't unfamiliar. She took a step forward slowly. The man, Tyler, struggled, trying to bite one of the arms holding him. Tyler, Emily said, and the sound of the name seemed to cut through the foam of panic. Tyler, look at me. I know you're listening, even if it doesn't seem like it. He spat out an unintelligible word and tried to break free again. Emily took a breath, and with a calmness she didn't know, where it came from, spoke as if she were on the radio, on the right channel, with the right tone. Riptide, this is Haven, Sierra. You're in friendly territory. The commander and the men around him froze. The phrase made no sense to anyone who hadn't lived through it. But Tyler stopped struggling, as if someone had flipped an invisible switch. His eyes locked on Emily, and for a second, the panic turned into painful confusion. Haven, he whispered, as if searching for the word in a locked drawer. I'm here, Emily said, taking another step closer. Breathe with me, slowly, 1, 2, 3. Tyler was trembling. His hands, which had previously sought combat, now sought support. He collapsed slightly into his teammate's arms. She's alive, he murmured, and his voice sounded like that of a lost child. The commander looked at Emily with a shock that she read as old guilt. I told you she was the only one. Dana appeared in the doorway, her face pale. What's going on here? Emily, since when? Not now, Emily said, not meaning to be rude, but being so. He's either hypoxic or having a post-traumatic panic attack. If we sedate him without assessing him, we could depress his breathing and make things worse. We need to check his oxygen saturation, glucose, neurological signs, and Tyler, tell me where it hurts. Tyler pointed trembling to his chest. It burns, and I saw... The phrase died, but his body stopped attacking. Impressed, Patel took advantage of the opportunity. Okay, great. Put him in room 2, monitor O2, and we'll assess him. Emily, you stay here with the embolism case. I'll alternate. I'll stay, Emily said, and felt a strange clarity, as if suddenly the role of new girl had peeled off her and fallen to the ground. The hyperbaric chamber team arrived like a tide of people with stretchers and equipment. Emily helped transfer the unconscious patient, maintaining high oxygen levels, monitoring heart rate, and talking to him even without knowing if he could hear her. You're going to be okay. Just hold on a little longer. In the corridor, as they passed, the commander waited. The blood in his side had increased, but he didn't seem to notice. His eyes were on Emily. Once he's in the chamber, you come with me, he said. My man with the piercing is still here, and I need you to look at me too. Emily felt a pang of irritation. Not because he was asking for help, she was a nurse, but because of the way he spoke, as if the whole world were a mission. You'll wait your turn like everyone else, she replied, only to realize later that she had said it aloud. The commander wasn't offended. He exhaled through his nose, almost a smile. Still stubborn? That hasn't changed. The memory came like a wave. One night in a makeshift shed, red light, her with blood-stained gloves, and a man, the same look, perhaps younger, saying, Haven, you can't save everyone. And her saying, I can try. The camera took the patient away. Emily came running back, her hands still trembling. Patel was in room 1 reorganizing, and Travis seemed to have forgotten how to speak. Who are you? He finally blurted out. Emily looked at him. A nurse. No, like this whole Haven thing, the commander, it seems like a movie. Emily took some tape and carefully fastened a bandage, as if the simple task were her anchor. It's not a movie, and I don't want to talk about it now. She left and went to room 3, where the man with the gunshot wound lay. He was conscious, his eyes half closed, his breathing shallow. The 2 men who had brought him were beside him, and the commander stood nearby, like a bodyguard for everyone. Emily put on her gloves. Where was the puncture wound? Metal bar, one of them replied. In training, fall. We moved it out of the way, but didn't touch anything. It bled a little at first, then... Emily carefully lifted the patient's shirt. There was a wound on his lower right side, small but deep, the kind of wound that didn't look as big as it was. She smelled fresh blood and saw the surrounding skin turning purplish. "Pressure?" Emily asked. 40 by 60, the coach replied, looking at the monitor. "It's dropping." "Shock," Emily said. "We need 2 IV lines, fluids, type and cross, call surgery, and fast ultrasound now." Patel entered, already understanding the gravity of the situation. "Okay, let's go. Travis, call a surgeon. Dana, blood. Emily, fast with me." Dana came in, but it wasn't Dana. It was another nurse. Dana was busy. The substitute looked at Emily with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Emily skillfully held the ultrasound probe. Patel looked, and his face hardened. "There's fluid," he said. "Peritoneal, probable internal bleeding, or now." The commander approached the patient on the stretcher and held his hand. "Stay with me, kid." The patient opened his eyes slightly. "Commander." "Shut up," the commander replied, but his voice was heavy. "You'll talk later." As they moved the stretcher to the operating room, Emily noticed that the commander was limping and that the hand on his side concealed an injury he was ignoring. She touched his arm roughly. "Now it's your turn," she said. "Show us." He looked at her, hesitating, and then nodded as if yielding because he trusted her. Emily led him to a corner of the procedure room, out of sight, and lifted his shirt. There was a deep cut on his left side and a purple area indicating an impact. Perhaps he had bumped into something or been hit. He was bleeding but not gushing. "Why didn't you say anything?" Emily asked, wiping with gauze. "I needed to secure mine," he said simply. "And you're not one of them." Emily tightened the gauze slightly. He didn't wince in pain, but his jaw clenched. "I am the commander. I can't." "You can," Emily interrupted. "You're human, and if you faint in the hallway, it'll just be another problem." He let out a short laugh. "You talk to the commander like you're, as if I were older?" Emily raised an eyebrow. "I'm not. I'm just not impressed anymore." He observed her face as if trying to piece together an old jigsaw puzzle. "You left without saying anything. You moved to another state. You changed your last name, and I—" "You what?" Emily asked, and her voice, though controlled, held a sharp edge. He blinked, and for a second the control fell. "I thought you were dead. During that evacuation. When the radio went dead." Emily stopped her hands. The silence between them was heavy with things that had never been said. "I almost died," she said finally. "But I didn't die." "I know," he swallowed. "I know now." Emily went back to work, cleaning, assessing depth, preparing sutures. "What's your name, Commander?" He seemed surprised, as if no one had asked that. "Ethan Shaw." "Ethan," Emily repeated, testing the sound. "Okay, Ethan. You're going to sit up and breathe. I'm going to suture you, but first I want you to tell me if you've taken anything, if you have any allergies, if..." "I don't have any allergies, and nothing, just coffee." "Great. Then shut up and let me work." He obeyed. The way he obeyed wasn't submission, it was trust. And that irritated Emily more than if he had argued, because trust was something she had left behind. When she finished suturing, she applied a firm bandage and tightened it lightly. "You have to stay under observation," she said. "I can't. I have to be with my husband. You'll either watch from a chair with a monitor on, or you'll watch as you faint and are intubated. The choice is yours." Ethan stared at her, and then, with a minimal gesture, he nodded. "Chair." Emily pulled a chair over to the nursing station and placed him there. Dana walked past and stared at the two of them. "Carter, what's going on?" Dana asked, her voice now lower, almost human. Emily looked at Dana, tired. "I'm doing my job." "But he called you." "I know." Dana took a breath. "Were you in the military?" Emily closed her eyes for a second. Part of her wanted to lie, to keep up the facade. Another part was tired of being invisible. "I was a combat medic, army. Then I became a nurse. And I don't want this to be a spectacle. I just want to work." Dana remained silent, as if reassessing the person in front of her. "Why didn't you speak?" "Because I didn't think it mattered, and because I didn't want to be the ex-military girl." I just wanted to be Emily. Dana glanced at Ethan, who was watching without interfering, and then turned back to Emily. And why did they call you Haven? Emily felt her throat tighten. Haven, shelter, safe place, the kind of name that sounded beautiful when given and heavy when carried. Because I was the one who arrived when no one else did, Emily said, and the phrase came out simpler than the truth. Ethan, in his chair, spoke softly, as if to add something. She was the reason many people came back, Emily. Gave him a look that said, "Shut up," but inside something gave way. The following hours passed in a flow that seemed both fast and endless. The patient with the embolism was in the operating room. The punctured operator was in the surgical center. Tyler, Riptide, was in room 2, monitored, finally breathing better, but with eyes that still trembled at the memory. Dana reorganized the shift with tense energy, and Mike, the veteran who had laughed, now avoided looking at Emily. Emily entered room 2 to check on Tyler. He was lying down, oxygen mask on his face, hands trembling. Next to him, one of the SEAL team men, a guy with a shaved head and a kind look, was holding a glass of water. Tyler turned his face away when Emily entered. "I thought you'd left forever." Emily sat on the edge of the bed, keeping a respectful distance. "I went. I needed to. You saved us that night," Tyler said, his voice trailing off. You picked up the dead guy's radio and talked as if he was still alive. And then the helicopter found us." Emily closed her eyes, the memory flashing before her eyes. Dust, screams, the crackling radio, her ears bleeding, mimicking the voice of an air traffic controller who was no longer responding. She had done it because she had no choice. And because, at that moment, Haven was a job, not a person. "Don't talk about that here," Emily pleaded. "You need to rest. What did you feel when you panicked?" Tyler took a deep breath, trying to continue. I was in the sea. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Then I saw lights, and I saw Mason's face." "Mason?" Emily asked. "The previous commander. He died on a mission. I saw him telling me to come up, to breathe, but I was trapped, and then I woke up and thought I was back there." Emily nodded slowly. "That's PTSD and also hypoxia. The brain gets mixed up. You're not weak because of it." Tyler let out a humorless laugh. "SEALs aren't weak. SEALs bleed too," Emily said. "And you don't have to fight it. Alone." He looked at her as if he were learning a new rule. "You too?" Emily held the stethoscope, her fingers tightening. "Me too." Tyler blinked, and a tear rolled down his cheek, quickly, as if from shame. "When he called you Haven, I thought, okay, if she's here, maybe I won't die." Emily swallowed the knot. "You're not going to die. And when you get out of here, you're going to talk to someone. A therapist, a doctor, someone. Promise." Tyler hesitated, then nodded. "I promise." Outside, someone announced that the surgeon wanted to speak with the family. There was no family. There was the team. Ethan rose from the chair with a movement too quick for someone who had just been stitched up and headed for the hallway. But Emily grabbed his arm. Slowly. "He's my man," Ethan said, and Emily realized that in his mouth, mine didn't mean possession. It meant responsibility. The surgeon, Dr. Klein, appeared with his mask hanging around his neck and tired eyes. He punctured his abdomen, hitting a segment of intestine and a blood vessel. "We managed to control the bleeding and repair it. He's going to the ICU. The next 12 hours are critical." Ethan nodded, his face hard. "Can I see him?" 5 minutes. No heroics. He needs calm." Ethan turned to Emily. "Come here. I'm not on your team," Emily said. "You are," he replied simply, and walked away. Emily followed, not out of obedience, but because part of her wanted to make sure the man in the ICU wouldn't be alone. The ICU had a silence that wasn't peace. It was vigilance. The perforated operator was intubated, machines breathing for him. Ethan approached and held his hand. "You did the right thing," Ethan murmured. "You did the right thing, and I'm here." Emily stood a step behind, watching. She saw the way the commander spoke to the unconscious man and understood something she had forgotten. In certain teams, The language was bond, and bond meant survival. Ethan went outside and stood in the hallway. When he turned, he saw Emily, and for the first time that night he seemed to allow his own body to weigh him down. His shoulders slumped a millimeter. "Thank you," he said. Emily sighed. "I didn't do it for you. I did it because I'm a nurse." "You always say that," he replied with a slight smile, "and it's always been half a lie." Emily felt her irritation turn to exhaustion. "Why did you call me that? In front of everyone?" "Because I needed you," Ethan said, "and because I didn't know if you would respond to your name." Emily remained silent. The hallway seemed too long. "You wanted me to be invisible," she said finally. "During that evacuation, you said, 'Haven, disappear, vanish. They'll look for you.'" Ethan closed his eyes for a second, as if that phrase was still on his lips after all these years. "I said that to protect you, and I took it as you're disposable," Emily replied, her voice, though low, with an old-fashioned tremor. "I took it as the mission is over. Disappear." Ethan opened his eyes. "You were the most valuable person in that place. I would never say disposable." "Then why didn't you come looking for me? Why didn't you ask if I was alive?" His face hardened. "I tried. I filed reports. I called contacts. They told me you'd been transferred, then that you'd requested a discharge, then nobody knew, and I had a team in operation. I couldn't go chasing a ghost." Emily laughed humorlessly. "Funny. I turned into a ghost on purpose." "Why?" he asked, and the question wasn't out of curiosity, it was pain. Emily stared at the cold lights in the hallway. "Because I couldn't stand being Haven anymore. Because every time someone called me that, I remembered what I couldn't save." Ethan remained silent. "Who?" Emily closed her fingers, her nails digging into her glove. "A girl. A civilian. She was maybe 12 years old. We were evacuating a village. The explosion came. I had to choose. I had two seriously wounded. One of them your operator, and I had her screaming for help. I ran to her, and then..." Her voice broke. Emily swallowed, breathed, and continued. "And then someone shouted my call sign on the radio, and I came back. I left her. I came back. And when I came back to look for her, she was already..." She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Ethan swallowed. "You carried this all by yourself?" "I carried it because I was the strong one," Emily said bitterly. "Because I was Haven. Shelter can't fall apart." Ethan took a step closer but didn't touch. "Haven is a name we gave it because you were the place where we could breathe. But you were always human, Emily." Emily looked at him, her eyes burning. "I'm human now. I have a badge. I get sore throats. I get scolded. I want to be normal." Ethan sighed. "Normal doesn't exist for us." The hospital radio called again. Hyperbaric chamber update. The embolism patient was responding, neurology improving. Emily felt a wave of relief so strong it almost hurt. She returned to the trauma room, where Dana awaited her with a look that mixed shame and respect. I was harsh with you," Dana said bluntly. "I thought you were just another recent graduate who would faint at the first sign of bleeding." Emily took off her gloves and threw them away. "I almost fainted, but that was a long time ago." Dana nodded. "I don't want to put you in a box, but I also don't want to waste you. You have talent, and I realized today that I was trying to protect my way of doing things as if it were property." Emily looked at her, surprised. Dana never apologized. "I don't want to be the boss," Emily said. "I just want you to trust me when I say a turnstile needs to be in front." Dana let out a short laugh, and for the first time she seemed human. "Okay. Tourniquet in front, I promise." Mike walked past, pausing for a second as if swallowing his pride. "Sorry for what I said." Emily looked at him and nodded. "Okay." It wasn't all good, but it was the best she could do at that moment. The sun began to brighten outside when the ICU called to say the punctured operator was stable, and the camera confirmed improvement in the diving patient. The emergency room breathed a sigh of relief, as if he had survived an attack. Emily went to the break room, grabbed a glass of water, and noticed her hands trembling. Adrenaline coursing out. tiredness setting in. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. When she opened the door, Ethan was there without her hearing him. "You shouldn't be walking," she said. "I shouldn't be doing half of what I do," he replied. He held out his hand with something, a small, heavy coin, engraved with a trident and a discreet inscription. "That's it? A coin," Ethan said. "From my team. I don't give that to just anyone." Emily stared at the coin, as if it were an emotional grenade. "I'm not part of your team." "You were," Ethan said. "And in a way you still are, because the things you did, they are here, today. You saved 2 of my men, and you saved yourself a little, even if you don't realize it." Emily squeezed the coin, feeling the cold metal in her palm. "I don't want to go back." "I'm not asking you to come back," Ethan said. "I'm asking you to stop running away from who you are." Emily laughed wearily. "Who am I?" "You are Emily Carter," Ethan said. "A nurse. And you are Haven, the person who doesn't give up. Both can exist." Emily felt a knot of anger and sadness. "What? If I can't handle both? Then we'll help you," he replied, as if it were obvious. "Just like you helped us." Emily looked at him, trying to decide whether she hated the idea or needed it. "You say we, as if I had a choice." "You have," Ethan said. "You always have. It's just that now I'm asking, not ordering." She was silent for a while, and then asked, "Do you know my real name? Or just my call sign?" Ethan smiled slightly. "I know, Emily Carter, but I also know the name you used before. Emily Hart." Emily felt her heart clench. Hart was her last name before the brief marriage that had turned to ruin. She had changed it to Carter out of a desire to disappear. How did he know? "As I searched," Ethan said simply. "Maybe I didn't find you before, but I searched." Emily swallowed back tears because crying was something she reserved for the car, alone in the parking lot with the radio turned down. "Why?" Ethan looked down the hallway, as if he didn't want the walls to hear. "Because I can't forget that night, because I owe you more than a coin, and because I wanted to make sure you weren't just a story we tell in bars to seem more human." Emily let out a long breath. "I don't want to be a barroom story." "Then don't be," Ethan said. "Be a person, and Emily, if you're up for it, I have a support team nearby, a psychologist, a good guy, not a textbook military guy. He understands." Emily looked at him, and for a second, the feeling of being alone in a world where no one understood her loosened. It didn't disappear, but it loosened. "I'll think about it," she said. Ethan nodded. "That's more than you've said in recent years." He was about to leave, but he stopped. "And Dana?" "Dana is trying to be human," Emily replied. Ethan laughed. "Good luck. She looks scarier than the Taliban." Emily let out a laugh, surprised that it was real. When Ethan left, Emily held the coin in her hand, twirling the metal between her fingers. The word Haven echoed, but not as a sentence, as a reminder of an ability she had tried to amputate. The shift ended at 7 a.m., but the hospital never seemed to end. Emily pulled out to the parking lot, the sky already bright, and the sea breeze carrying salt. She sat in the car, rested her head on the steering wheel, and for the first time in a long time, allowed her body to cry silently. It wasn't a cry of despair. It was a cry for something that had been held back for too long. The next day, she returned. The emergency room was quieter, but the way people looked at her was different. Mike nodded in greeting. Travis asked for her opinion on a difficult access case. Dana handed her the scale and, without irony, said, "Carter, Emily, I put you on standby in the trauma room today, not because you were in the military, because you're good." Emily nodded, feeling a strange mixture of pride and fear. Being seen was dangerous. Being seen meant expectation, and expectation meant possible failure. Shortly after noon, the phone at the gas station rang. Dana answered, and her expression changed. "He's from the ICU, Dana said. "The drilled operator woke up and asked for you." Emily felt her mouth go dry. "For me?" "He said, Nurse Haven," Dana added, and the words sounded like both a warning and an invitation. Emily walked cautiously to the ICU. The operator, now without a tube, looked younger than he had the night before. His eyes were tired, but alive. He looked at her and tried to smile. "Are you Haven?" he asked, his voice weak. Emily stopped beside the bed. "I am Emily." He nodded as if he understood that names were choices. "I heard the commander calling you. He never calls anyone that. Never. He doesn't let anyone into the easy way out." Emily looked at the machines, at the IV bag, as if she could hide there. "You're alive. That's what matters. I'm alive because of you," he insisted. "And because of the commander, of course, but he said you saved him once. Abroad." Emily took a deep breath. "You don't need to carry this debt, just recover." The operator swallowed. "I'm afraid to sleep." Emily looked at him, noticing the slight tremor in his hands. "I had that too. And did it pass?" Emily hesitated. The truth was ugly and complicated, but she didn't want to lie. "It doesn't completely go away," she said, "but it changes. It becomes more manageable if you talk to someone, if you don't pretend everything's okay." He nodded and his eyes welled up. "I didn't want anyone to see." "Everyone sees it anyway," Emily said more gently. "The difference is that when you speak, you choose how." When she left the ICU, Ethan was in the hallway, as if the hospital were his territory. He seemed better, but his eyes were more tired. "He asked for you," Ethan said. "I saw." Ethan leaned against the wall beside her. "He admires you. They all do. And that's dangerous." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous? Because heroes become targets," Ethan said. "And because what you did yesterday is going to spread, and they're going to want to drag you out again." Emily breathed, feeling the familiar panic of being summoned. "I'm not going." "I know," Ethan said, "but I also know that when the radio rings and someone is dying, you'll go." Emily remained silent. He was right, and she hated it. Ethan took a piece of paper from his pocket and handed it over. "Address. Time, Dr. Morales. Tuesday, 6 p.m. Just talking. You don't need to promise anything." Emily looked at the paper. "Are you recruiting me for therapy?" "I'm giving you a way out that isn't an escape," Ethan replied. Emily tucked the paper into her lab coat pocket without overthinking it, like someone keeping an extra bandage. On Tuesday, she showed up at Dr. Morales' office with the same feeling as entering a trauma room. Racing heart, cold hands, her mind trying to find an escape plan. She almost left 3 times before opening the door, but she did. The office was simple, with a window overlooking the sea in the distance. Dr. Morales was a middle-aged man with calm eyes, lacking that "I know everything" air. He didn't ask about medals or missions. He asked about sleep, about food, about how she felt when someone said, "Haven." Emily tried to joke. She tried to downplay it, but little by little the words came out like blood from a wound we pretend doesn't exist. She spoke of the girl. She spoke of the radio. She spoke of the fear of being needed. She spoke of the exhaustion of being strong. And at some point, Dr. Morales said, "You are not a shelter for everyone. You are a person who, sometimes, offers shelter. And that's different." Emily cried there, facing the car, without a steering wheel, without a car. She cried with shame and with relief. In the following weeks, the emergency room returned to its normal rhythm of controlled chaos. But Emily was a different person inside it. She continued treating sore throats, continued changing bandages, continued getting scolded when she forgot to sign a paper. Only now, when the trauma room called, she entered without asking permission from her own fear. Dana started asking for her opinion before changing her routine. Mike stopped making jokes about field stuff. Travis started studying more and during a shift confessed, "I thought I wanted adrenaline. Now I see that I wanted validation." You have both." "How?" Emily replied with weary honesty. "I don't have it. I only appear to." On a rainy night, a month after the incident, the emergency room received another call from the helipad. This time, it was a civilian. A car accident. The whole family. Chaos returned, and Emily found herself leading an improvised team, delegating tasks clearly, keeping her voice low amidst the shouting. Dana watched from afar with an expression that mixed pride and astonishment. When things calmed down, Dana approached. "I saw you today. For real." Emily wiped her hands. "I only did what I had to." "Do?" Dana nodded. "I was a newbie once too, and I was ignored. I promised I'd never do that to anyone else, and I did. To you." Emily looked at her. "Are you trying to ask for forgiveness?" "I'm trying to learn," Dana said. Emily felt an old weight shift. "So you learned this. You don't know what people are carrying, not even when they seem just new." Dana swallowed and nodded. "I learned." 2 months later, Tyler returned to the emergency room, not as a patient, but as a visitor. He had short hair, wore a simple shirt, and was carrying a bag of coffee and donuts. "I brought peace in the form of sugar," he said, trying to smile. "And I'm going to therapy. I hate it, but I'm going." Emily laughed. "Good. Hate in peace." Tyler became serious for a moment. "Haven, Emily, thank you. I thought I was going crazy." "You weren't crazy," Emily said. "You were hurt. Those are different things." Tyler nodded, as if saving the phrase for a bad day. Before leaving, he placed his hand on his heart, in a discreet, almost military gesture, and left. Ethan would show up every now and then, always with that air of a man who never had time, but always managed to find it. Sometimes he would just pass by and ask in a casual tone, "Did you go on Tuesday?" And Emily would answer, "Yes." It wasn't much, but it was a bridge. One afternoon, when the sky was orange over the Pacific and the hospital seemed to breathe slower, Ethan found Emily in the parking lot. "Do you have 5 minutes?" he asked. "It depends if it's a mission," Emily replied. "It's conversation." They walked to a concrete bench from where they could see the shoreline. Ethan took the coin out of his pocket and spun it, just like she did. "Do you know why they called you Haven?" he asked, as if she didn't know. "Because I was shelter," Emily replied dryly. "No," Ethan said. "Because that night abroad, you didn't just save people. You stayed when everyone else would have run. You stayed by a dying boy and held his hand until the helicopter arrived. You told him he wasn't going to die alone, and he did, but he didn't die alone." Emily felt her throat tighten. "Why are you telling me this?" Ethan looked out at the sea. "Why do you think you failed because a girl died? And I'm not going to take that away from you with pretty words, but I want you to remember the rest. What you did, what you were to us, and what you can be to yourself." Emily ran her tongue over her lips, tasting a saltiness that could have been wind or a tear. "I don't want to be a symbol." "Nobody wants to," Ethan replied. "But sometimes we turn around, and the way to avoid being swallowed up by it is to choose." Emily looked at him. "Choose what?" "Choose to stay," Ethan said. "Not in the war, here in life." Emily remained silent for a while. The sea continued to lie there, indifferent. The hospital gleamed behind them, like a small town that never slept. "I chose to stay," Emily said finally, and she herself seemed surprised. "I chose to stay when I came back here after that night. I could have asked for a transfer. I could have disappeared again. I stayed." Ethan nodded as if receiving a report. "Good." Emily took a deep breath. "You still boss everyone around like that?" Ethan laughed. "Only when they're dying." "Then stop ordering me around," Emily said, and her smile came before the pain. "I'll try," he replied. On her last shift before Christmas, the emergency room was packed with people suffering from the flu, minor kitchen accidents, and a loneliness that seemed to intensify with the colorful lights in the hallway. Emily was attending to an elderly gentleman who had fallen down the stairs, and he was holding her hand tightly. "My wife died last year," he said suddenly, "and I don't know how to do this alone." Emily squeezed his hand back, and in that gesture she felt something, the same function of shelter, only without the uniform, without the radio. Shelter was also that. It wasn't just war, it was humanity. When she finished, she went to the station and saw that Dana had put up a makeshift sign near the trauma room. It wasn't official, it was just a piece of paper taped on with handwritten writing. "If you see someone being ignored, you can be the person who changes everything." Emily looked at Dana. Dana shrugged, but there was a glint in her eyes. Learning experience, Dana said. Emily felt a pleasant tightening in her chest. Thank you. That night, when the radio crackled with a new inbound call, highway accident, multiple victims, Emily stood up, grabbed her gloves, and entered the trauma room with a firm heart, and someone called his name from the hallway. Not Haven, not Newby, not Carter. Emily. She glanced and saw Ethan passing by, his uniform discreet beneath his coat, looking at her as if acknowledging a choice. She nodded. Let's get to work. And chaos ensued as it always did. But this time, Emily didn't feel small within it. She felt present, whole. Not because the past had disappeared, but because she had finally stopped pretending it didn't exist. Somewhere between the monitor's beep and the sound of the stretcher's wheels, she understood that being a shelter didn't mean not falling. It meant falling and even so stretching out wire by hand. And when later, at the end of her shift, she put the coin in her pocket and stepped out into the sea breeze, Emily didn't feel like disappearing. She felt like breathing.